you so much for joining us. We're going to have a really exciting live today. So, sperm counts have dropped over 50% in the last few decades. Can plastic be part of the reason? Scientists and couples facing infertility explore this concept in the newest Netflix documentary, The Plastic Detox, that's available now. The film follows six couples facing unexplained infertility as they undergo an intervention that featured Million Marker's fertility kits that includes testing, personalized report, and education. One of the main personalities in the documentary is a close friend and a partner of ours, Dr. Shanna Swan. Dr. Swan helped us develop the intervention used in the plastic detox. She is an award-winning scientist based in Mount Sinai and has published more than 200 scientific papers. Dr. Shanna Swan currently serves as a director for the Action Science Initiative powered by Million Marker Research Institute. ASI is a program that conducts rapid interventions and larger, longer-term studies examining the impacts of environmental pollutants on fertility and related markers of reproductive health. The plastic detox, Dr. Shanna Swan guided couples as they bravely shared their infertility journeys and took steps to detox their homes and their lives. So during this live, we are going to discuss the need for this documentary, the connection between plastics and infertility, Dr. Swan's experience filming the documentary, and so much more. So, no problem. Hi, Shauna.
Hi. Nice to be here with you. Um, so I think I got the tech right. You can hear it,
Yes,
right?
yes, I
Okay,
can hear
Gary.
you. That was
It's supposed to be
perfect.
you. Let me turn up my volume a little bit. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't do these as many often as you. Okay. I think that's better. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
You had no problem actually. Like it's like super smooth.
Good.
Okay, let's get started. Thank you so much for joining us. I think it's our first time doing live together.
I think so. Yeah, that's surprising, right? Yeah.
Okay, for people like who's being our live who have not met you, tell the audience a little bit about yourself, how you became the leading environmental and reproductive and epidemiologist.
I don't know about the leading part, but I
You know.
yeah, right. I've been working in asking questions about reproductive health and uh human exposure for over 20 years. Started with my work in the California Department of Health Services when we looked at a contaminated water supply and its possible relation to miscarriages in a community. And that was a good introduction. And then I worked for Kaiser on health effects of oral contraceptives. And then, yeah, anyway, I got here through a sort of diverse path. My background is originally have a degree in statistics, and then I became an epidemiologist. So I'm both. And I think maybe I should add that, I was doing very traditional science for a very long time, doing what you're supposed to do. You publish in scientific journals, you speak at scientific meetings, and then actually it was Joe Rogan who said to me, you know, when I told him about these problems, he said, "How come people don't know about this?" So I thought, yeah, how come? And so I decided that I would try to do good science, but in somewhat different ways, something that were fast and impactful, and I could communicate them better, and I could talk to Jenna and others on media like this, or I can be in a movie like the movie that just came out. And these are not traditional ways to communicate science, but I think maybe they're more effective. Maybe they will help to answer Joe Rogan's question about why people don't know about this. Like, maybe they will. And from all the messages I'm getting now, which are pouring in, people are getting to know about this. So that's really exciting.
So, what's the connection between the environment and reproductive health?
Wow, well, we could fill a lot of books with that, right? But I think the point here is that the products that we're exposed to every day, all the time, in our daily lives, in our work, our whole families are exposed. Those products have the ability to affect our reproductive health because they contain chemicals that have the ability to affect our reproductive system. And that's kind of I was surprised at first when I learned that. I I I think most people will be surprised. For example, um, phthalates, which is a hard word to say, but it's the class of chemicals that are making plastic soft, like your soft water bottle, right? And they have the unfortunate ability to lower testosterone. Who wants their testosterone lowered? Not many people. And so that was one of the first things we studied. Um, but and we can talk about where these are, but just so the bottom line is chemicals in everyday products affect our hormones in a way that affects our health.
Is that the reason you think, testing some of these chemicals using plastic like phthalates, it's really important for couples, especially the ones that in the film?
Oh, I think, probably if couples have no problem getting pregnant, they won't go for testing. Now, I should say that's not maybe not the best decision because these chemicals affect other things. For example, obesity and immune function and cancer risk and on and on. The many, I think I would say that a baseline measure of the chemicals in your body, which Million Marker can provide, is a very good investment in your health. And seeing how those change maybe every couple of years, or if you change your job, or if you change your location. Have I moved to a place that is more hazardous? Am I taking a job that is more hazardous? I think that those are good questions to ask. And so it's not just for people having trouble getting pregnant, and it's not just reproductive health that's affected.
I wish that's the day that, doing such tests, understanding your exposure, it became part of the routine healthcare. It's almost like I kind of think it would be really great. It's kind of like you getting your teeth cleaned twice a year. That's covered by insurance, right? So you check your exposures twice a year so you can like keep yourself on track, like reducing exposures. As we know, it's kind of a like life course approach that you need to
Yeah, yeah,
basically go out of your way all the time to reduce exposure.
yeah. And I might say once a year when you get your annual physical might be enough, but depending on. Or maybe you had high levels last time and you want to see how they've gone down. So I think when you get information about your levels, then you want to think about why are they elevated and what's contributing to that? What's making me have these high levels of bisphenols, say? And then we can talk about that, but also there are resources attached to our film which can help you find out the sources of your exposure.
Now let's get into the film because this is what everyone's being so excited about.
Yeah. Yeah.
So how did this opportunity came about to participate in this film?
Well, I actually can't tell you that. All I know is that about 5 years ago, uh, a filmmaker, Louis Soyos, who is actually an Oscar-winning filmmaker, um, contacted me to do an interview for a film he was doing on plastic. At that point, there was no that it didn't have the structure it has now. Um, and we had a very nice interview. I remember the place was in New York, and and he was interested in my work as I was in his, and we formed this relationship and partnership, and pretty soon I told him about the idea of doing what we call an intervention, which is in this case very small study where we can pretty quickly, much faster than in a big NIH funded study, which takes years and years, so quickly go in and get some data which we could give to people, which might help them improve their health, and then maybe go on to do a bigger study. That's kind of what we're doing here. But um, it didn't start as this movie. It didn't start as this intervention. It started as this interview for this movie that Louis was doing, which didn't have this shape. But when we talked, I thought, well, why not? And then we kind of put it together.
And is that the reason that you decided to participate in the movie?
Well, I was kind of in it. I mean, before it was this movie, it was a movie about, plastic. That was at the beginning, it was not about fertile couples, particular infertile couples or any kind of couples. It was just a movie about plastic. And so I was just interested in I'm interested in plastic. I'm interested in chemicals in the environment. Is the big source is plastic. So, and I like film. I think it's a great medium, and I wanted, and I've done many, but this is the first one that's really taken off like this, and I think it's going to be the most effective.
Oh, I think so. So, what was it like to actually work so closely with the couples who had been facing infertilities for so long?
I I can't hardly say, Jenna, how wonderful it was. I mean, these couples really let me into their lives. One of the couples that recently had a baby said on camera, "But we can't name it Shauna because it's a boy." That's how close we were. And I just saw one of the couples at a party 2 nights ago, a film showing, and it was Monique and Bruno, and they're about to have another baby, and they were just ecstatic and wonderful and warm, and so it was this wonderful combination of doing science and connecting with people in a way that's extremely gratifying.
That is so amazing. So, now let's talk a little bit about the rising infertility rates. So, based on your decades of research, why do you think that there is has been a raise in infertility rates?
Oh, well, of course, knowing what what I do and what I'm interested in. So I'm interested in chemicals in the environment. Falling testosterone is not a good signal for fertility rates, right? Because we need a good and by the way, another class of chemicals which play in here, which are the bisphenols, they have the ability to raise estrogen, which is also not great. So we're tampering with the body's hormones that are required to get pregnant. And we're doing it all the time, 24/7, comes in all the time. We don't have to do anything to get it in our body. We just breathe it, we drink it in the water, the products we get into our home, that we put on our skin, that we put on our counters, that we wash our clothes with, all of those things are affecting our fertility. And so, it's a natural thing to look there to see some couples are infertile. Well, what are their exposures? And Jenna, you helped out tremendously with that.
So, if a family is considering having a baby, like how soon in advance should they start their plastic detox?
I'm sorry, say again?
So, if a family is considering having a baby, like how soon in advance do you think they need to start their plastic detox?
Um, I think they should consider getting tested at least 3 months before they'd like to, really try it. And that's because it takes 70 days to make a sperm, right? So, and both the man and woman can contribute to this. So, that's why we did a 3-month intervention. So I would say 3 months is maybe not the magic number, but it seems to be a good number.
Mhm. So, we also often joked about it. People often plan their wedding more than 3 months in advance, but people don't actually plan their pregnancy
Right.
more than 3 months in advance. So, we really need to start doing that.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be great. And like I said, I mean, if the medical establishment could be convinced, or the medical insurance, etc., could be convinced to put this into the assessment that you have every year, you go for your checkup, your annual checkup, and you get lots of things tested. You go to the lab, you have, all kinds of things tested. I think it would be incredible if people could also know at that point what's the chemical load they're carrying.
Mhm.
And I think we're not there yet, but maybe this will help that along.
This will be a little bit of a spoiler alert for people who have not watched the documentary yet. So tell us a little bit about the intervention. What did the couples do in the documentary?
Okay. So, first of all, they had to agree to be in this movie, which is a kind of a big commitment, talk about very personal things. And we found them because these were men who had been tested, had their sperm tested, and had low sperm count. And they had had trouble getting pregnant for at least a year. That's the definition of being infertile. And so we got these infertile men, and then we had to find out whether they had to be known reasons for being infertile, because we didn't want to include men that could be have their infertility explained by other, say, medical reasons, or the woman by medical reasons. So what we call that is idiopathic infertility, no known cause. So we recruited couples, and they had to be living together and not traveling for a long time because we wanted to talk to them and be with them and share things with them. And so we got them. They had to agree, to all of these things, and they were um, all wonderful, I have to say, that we would do, we're very, very lucky. And then what we did was, um, well, Jenna, talk to them. Or if not Jenna, then your team talked to them and did this inventory, right? What did they put on their face? What did they wash their clothes with? What did they store their food in? La la la, on and on and on and on. And with that inventory, we knew a lot about their possible sources of exposure, right? And then, well, maybe you should say, Jenna, what did you do then?
Okay, I'll say a little bit and then you can fill in the blank.
Yeah.
So I think we, after we did an inventory, we gave them a test. And then we gave them the report back, which is very personalized, that detailed, where their potential sources of exposure coming from, what their levels are, and how they compare with the national average. Then we did almost weekly, depending on the couple's availability and needs, weekly coaching, almost weekly coaching, to trying to figure out, okay, are they on track of reducing their exposure? Do they have any questions? So we did that, and then we also tested men's sperm. So we did sperm testing, we did urinary EDC testing, and we also did midpoint testing, which is 1 month after they started the intervention. And then we follow them again at the end. But I think, Shauna, you also, one of the biggest thing is you also visited them in
Mhm.
person, because we did everything remotely, but you visited them in person, right?
Yeah. Yeah. That was interesting and fun and challenging because they lived all over the United States. And so I and the film team, because this was all filmed, went to their home. You can see that in the film, knock, 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 "Oh, it's so good to meet you." And then, we started our, relationship, and that was great. And they were so open, to that. And then I could see the environment. I actually went around their house with them. So I went like into the kitchen. I'll say, "Well, look here, there are those containers. Maybe we can swap those out, for glass and their shower curtain and on through their house." So I did this little walkthrough with them, and and then talk about the box.
Oh yeah, you also brought them, besides visiting them, you also brought them a care package,
Right.
which we have included important potential exposure item, like a kitchen item like bamboo utensils, glass containers, Tupperwares. We brought them safe personal care products that curated by us, and then also shower curtains, also cleaning products. So everyone got a nice care package that they actually used during the intervention.
Yeah. So I think the model is pretty simple. Find out what their exposure is, give them we know what those sources are because we've done this inventory with them, and then give them alternatives. And then see if that lowered their exposure. And did they raise their sperm count? And did they get pregnant?
Yes, I guess we won't reveal like whether they got pregnant or not, because we want everyone to watch the film. But
Right. Right.
it was just like so wonderful to see the final results.
Yeah. Yeah. All
Okay,
good, I
so
would say.
yes, but besides like the our intervention and then you being in the film yourself biased the set, why do you think the Plastic Detox is a must watch documentary?
Oh, well, first of all, the team is brilliant. I mean, you can't get better. I was like so lucky to be working with them. Um, Louis is an Oscar winner. The co-director was an Emmy winner, Josh Murphy, and all they were just really excellent. And they understood. They understood the science. They understood the personal implications. They were empathetic. They were available to me and to the participants. I think it's a model actually for doing a documentary like this. And I think the end result speaks for itself, and everybody should watch it because it's out right now and it's terrific.
So every study, every time we do any interventions or scientific study, it always come with some limitations. In fact, like even like just yesterday, I saw American Chemical Society came out had a statement regarding the documentary. So let's just like talk a little about limitations for the study. Like what are some limitations?
Yeah, yeah. So first of all, it's a very small study. Yes, I mean that's no doubt about it. It's it was meant to bring you viewers into the lives of a few people and who you could connect with on a personal level, empathize with them, and go through their journey with them. You can't do that with cast of thousands. It's not a model for. I've done a study of 1,000 pregnant women twice, actually, and that's exciting. But it's a different study, and so we're actually I should say we're doing both in the sense that we did this. Now we have some what we call pilot data, and now Jen and I and others on the team are putting together an application to do this on a very large number of couples and do it in the classical way so that we can address comments from critics like the American Chemistry Council and say, yes, we did it in this small, intimate way, and we also did it in a very large, traditional way. And that's the kind of study I have done most of my life, professional life. So I certainly know how to do that. I've gotten extraordinary results, by the way, on some of those studies. And so they're both wonderful models, designs for doing studies, but they have different impacts on different populations and so on. So I think they're both valuable. Yeah.
I also feel like even though this is a small study, but every step of the way, it's literally following the exact same pipeline or pathway for a larger study. We started with filing, like applying for IRB, making sure human subject. We had participants sign the consent, and then every single step is exactly how you would run a large study. So the science is really rigorous, and then
Yeah.
we see very significant results. Like people had very statistically actually significant reductions in their BPAs and phthalates and all these major.
But we're not talking about that, right?
Yes, we're not talking about that. Okay, we want to talk about. Okay, we want to talk about it. People needs to like watch the people needs to watch the film.
Yeah. But I think the message for people watching this is yes, these chemicals are everywhere for everyone all the time, and you can reduce them. I mean, if nothing else, forget the fertility part. Just demonstrating this reduction in personal exposure measurably and pretty easily is really should make people feel really good. Yes, I can take control of my exposures. I can change my products. They did it, you know, I can do it. That's really what we want to convey, I think.
Absolutely. So now, let's talk about ASI because I think that's also really important. If someone is starting like a plastic detox tomorrow, like what are the first like three things they you would recommend?
You have to say that again. People are starting a what?
Plastic detox tomorrow. What are the three things they should start?
A plastic detox program or plastic detox? I don't hear that.
Uh, I guess like if they want to start reducing plastic in their lives tomorrow,
Oh,
what should they start
yeah.
with?
I think that you should talk to Shanna. I think you should go to Million Marker because they have so much information and can educate you and based on what you now use. You see, it's not a general recommendation. It's a very specific recommendation to you. You say you're using brand X and we'll tell you what's in brand X and what you can, that you should stop using brand X or use less of brand. Yeah. So I would say the first thing you should do is go to Million Marker. Now, I could be biased about that, but because we're partners, and by the way, I am not I'm not in the for-profit arm of this at all. But I'm in the Research Institute, which is an important scientific institute that Million Marker runs. And I think that's important because I'd never endorsed any product. Uh, I'm not doing that here. But I am talking about a colleague and colleagues who are excellent and who I choose to work with. I don't think that's not a conflict of interest. So I just want to be clear about that. But I think you should watch the movie. You should also, here I am making a pitch, but it's my own book. I would say you should read my book, Countdown. Those are 2 words. It's important to use the 2 words. C, count, capital C, capital D, down, because Countdown in 1 word is another book. Okay, so Countdown, sold on Amazon. And we have several chapters that go into exactly this. What can you do to change your exposure pattern, your exposure, your life, the story of plastics in your body. How can you clean that up, And Countdown is specifically primarily about sperm decline. And just to summarize it really quickly, we demonstrated a very large, probably the largest ever study of semen quality in the world. That there has been a dramatic decline about the rate of 1% per year and faster since 2000, which is really interesting. It's gotten worse since 2000. And of course, in that study, we did not measure anything in people, but other studies have linked these chemicals to lower sperm count. Yeah. So you said I should talk about ASI. So
Yes.
ASI is the program that I set up after being on that Joe Rogan podcast. When he said, "Well, why don't people know about this?" And then I thought, well, I'm going to not get out of classical academia, but take a big chunk of my time out of classical academia and do something different. Why not? This wasn't working, so try something different. And what we're doing is these, e- this film is filming one of the interventions that we do. We do other interventions too. And we're a very small group. Anyone wants to give us money? Yes, please do. But as we can, we are working on areas in which people can change their exposure. Maybe it's not plastics, maybe it's pesticides, maybe it's PFAS chemicals, and change better their health in various ways, not necessarily reproductive. It could be risk of cancer, it could be obesity, it could be immune function. All of these things are governed by hormones. So any chemicals that affect hormones are going to play a role here. And so ASI is looking at changing exposure to hormonal chemicals, hormonally active chemicals in a way that affects people's lives, but on a small scale because we're small, the interventions are short, they're relatively inexpensive. And then our hope is, because we're young and new, we will blow these up to large NIH studies. So that's what I'm trying to do.
So, what are some like really exciting upcoming projects at ASI? Can we get a sneak peek?
Oh, a sneak peek. I'll tell you one, which I think I can talk about without giving too much away, which is that we are interested in looking at what's in kids' clothing, and in particular, the school uniforms, but also we could do sports uniforms and also firefighter uniforms. The chemicals that are put into clothing to make it water resistant and stain resistant, and those are what's called PFAS chemicals. It's also what's on your Teflon pans. And 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 it turns out that those chemicals have the ability to lower how you respond to a vaccination, your immune response. What are the antibody counts that you come up with after you've been exposed versus not exposed? So everyone listening could imagine that intervention. If you couldn't design it yourself, right? You want to have kids in one school that has say, clean uniforms, or a sports team with clean uniforms, or firefighters with clean uniforms, and those that have the traditional PFAS-laden uniforms. And then after they have an injection, like, when they're 6 years old, they get their booster shot, right? Then you can look in their blood and see what their antibody counts are and see if they are different depending on the type of uniform. That's one study that I think will be really impactful, and, um, yeah, I'd like to do that. So maybe I'll stop there or you can ask questions.
No, I think we're like a perfect right on time. And so thank you so much for sharing like everything with us today. I think we're gonna be organizing a few more lives, more exciting lives around the movie because there's like so much to share. So everyone, please stay tuned. But in the meantime, please follow Dr. Shauna Swan at all one words, Dr. Shanna Swan. Also get your countdown on Amazon, and then most importantly, watch Plastic Detox.
Thank you, Jana, so much for inviting me, and it's been really fun. Thank you.
Talk to you soon. Bye.